Hey, Skull Minnesota Vikings fans, we are going old school this week with the Purple People podcast. It is like old school raw with just Adam Carlson and myself doing this week's episode.
It's true, no wild cards are showing up this week, and I don't have a boombox to put on my shoulder, but we're gonna do what we can do.
I kind of want you to have a boombox for next week's episode now, Adam. Just recording the whole thing, just going like that.
Hey, gotta do what you gotta do. That's true. Nice big boombox and can play whatever the Skull Vikings theme over and over and over. I don't know.
Yeah, sure, why not? We are at 359 episodes of this nonsense. Ying Yaj in the chat says, short show becomes 57 minutes long. More like
57 minutes short show.
Yeah, but we are at 359 episodes of this. Adam, how is that possible?
I am not sure, especially since we do this once a week. It feels like it doesn't feel like we've been doing it for that long.
It really doesn't. And I think that's what's cool about our show is that because we're once a week, like, to me, our numbers mean something. Like, that 349 episodes means something. If you record a 10-minute podcast every day, like, of course you can have a large number, but I think ours is cool. What did you name this one? Paton's Place?
Yep.
I think we've used that probably 5 times before at this point, but you know what?
But this time it's a different Paton, so we're good.
Yes, the spelling is slightly different, so we are allowed to get away with it. Real
right.
Purple and Gold in the chat room says, Skull, guys, ready for better season than last. I agree. Our hopes are all high for this.
I mean, there's still a lot of positive things to take away from last year, but as far as record-wise and maybe the playoffs, I'm ready for some improvements.
I think so, too. And that's actually a really good segue into our quick hits and our first topic. It's like we plan these things, but we don't. There's no planning on this episode. Let's see here. NFL Network analyst David Carr predicted the Vikings will win this year's Super Bowl. I got a little quote from him. He says the offense will undoubtedly be better with Gary Kubiak and Kevin Stefanski running the show. Cousins played some of his best football in Washington under Kyle Shanahan, whose offense is really close to the one that Kubiak is going to run. Kubiak won a ring in Denver as the head coach in 2015, and now he thinks it's time for Mike Zimmer to get his. What say you on that one, Adam?
Well, I actually don't like this one bit. And it's not the way that most Vikings fans think, where they want to fly under the radar or they think that the team isn't getting enough respect or things like that. For me, it is because it's David Carr.
I knew you were going to say that.
David Carr has no clue what's going on. His predictions, his lists, they're all just terrible. Absolutely terrible. As much as I would love to put stock in anything David Carr says, when he releases his list of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL and puts his brother on there, it's just, it's no. Just no. Stop.
You know what? I like the first part of this quote, the part where he said this offense will undoubtedly be better with Gary Kubiak and Kevin Stefanski running the show.
Oh, no doubt.
That's the part of this quote that I'm like, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm give or take on what happened in Washington and Kyle Shanahan and mirroring. I don't know about that, but I do think definitely that our offense is going to take a step forward. We've even heard that already from a couple players on the team. Who was it? Is it Anthony Barr?
Yeah, it's nice to hear that from the defense because I know that they're not going tough at each other head-to-head right now, but just to see that kind of improvement and mention it is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. Dorian Foley is with us in the chat. He says, what's going on, you squares? You should be with us, Dorian. You could be recording right now. What's up? Andrew says, oh no, so maybe he does not agree with David Carr's prediction either.
Or maybe he just doesn't agree with David Carr's face.
Let's see here. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the Vikings offensive coordinator position. Our old coordinator from last season, John DeFilippo, he's the current Jaguars offensive coordinator, doesn't want to talk about his time in Minnesota. He was pressed to kind of ask what happened, and he gave a very by-the-book kind of quote that said he's just not going to talk about it.
How did he get a lateral job after just crashing so badly?
I don't know.
I mean, he was quarterback's coach in Philly.
Philly, yep.
Vikings kind of jump a little bit and throw him in at offensive coordinator, and he just does not play to a team's strengths. He refuses to make the team multidimensional, and the Jaguars see this and say, yeah, we need this.
And he seemingly didn't listen to what the head coach wanted to do. I think that's kind of like the frustrating part about his time in Minnesota, is that he just really didn't. He didn't buy into the team philosophy of it. And so I don't know either why Jacksonville was so like, yeah, we want that on our team. Boy, I tell you what.
I mean, I'm not gunning for him to fail in Jacksonville. It's just Jacksonville is a team that's built around establishing the run and then opening up the pass. And I understand he's got a familiar player at quarterback. And I understand that offensives can win in this league with a subpar run game and a stellar passing game. But I don't think Flip has the pieces down there to make this work. And I really don't understand this situation at all. Flip is just... I'm glad Minnesota made the decision to get rid of him when they could, because he was a horrible fit here, and I hope that whatever fit he's got down there works out.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall during some of those meetings with Mike Zimmer, just to know what was said behind closed doors, like how much they argued, how much Zimmer tore into him, what kind of disagreements happened, because there has to have been a lot of that went on.
Yeah, I can't picture Mike Zimmer being anything but disappointed. His defense was on the field so much that it just... I don't understand how that unit could have succeeded. You're going to give up a ton of points and a ton of yards when your defense is on the field constantly, and you can't pick up first downs. You can't move the chains. It's just not an effective way to win games.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. Kind of talking a little bit about last season and the expectations coming in, where it's like the defense got a lot of the blame. But like you said, the offense couldn't sustain drives on the field, and that's putting your defense in bad positions where they got to continually be out there trying to make plays for the team. So that's one of the areas that you hope to see an improvement for by the Vikings in 2019, and that's just flat out more production from the offense.
I wonder how David Carr feels about Flip.
I don't know. Do we care? I don't know if I care.
Everybody cares about David Carr.
I really don't. Let's see here. We've got a next quick hit is about the NFL's all under 25 team, where it's like they pick the best players under the age of 25 from around the league, and they put them together, and they also make you go, I'm getting old because I'm older than so many players in the league now.
Right.
That's also what this list does to you. What was it? Rookie center Garrett Bradbury. He hasn't even took a snap yet, and he's listed on this team.
What's shocking is when I was doing a little bit of research, I wrote an article about this over on the Viking Age.
Yeah.
I discovered how many starting centers in the NFL are over 25, and it's almost all of them.
I didn't know that.
This year, there are a couple more starting that are 24, 23, but they also have a lack of experience. So, to be honest, as much as I was going to criticize putting Bradbury on that list or on that team at center, I don't think that there were a lot of better options there.
Well, it proves kind of what the expectations for him are moving forward, I think, as well, too. To be listed without even taking a snap, that's got to say something about what the experts are projecting him to do for the Vikings.
I mean, you're not going to plug like Billy Price on there. Billy Price hasn't done anything. He's been a backup, and honestly, there isn't a lot to really love about him. So, yeah, grab a first-rounder and throw him on the list. But the real problem here comes with a guy that NFL.com absolutely missed, and thankfully CBS Sports didn't.
Yeah, I seen that CBS Sports had Danielle Hunter listed, and I don't know how NFL did not have him on there, because Danielle Hunter is a beast. We love him here at the podcast.
They chose Bosa over him.
Don't like it. I don't like it.
Bosa, to me, if you can't stay on the field, you can't play. Your value goes down if you aren't on the field. And Bosa's inability to stay healthy and stay on the field, compared to what Danielle Hunter has accomplished already in 4 seasons and still 24, it's stupid.
How many sacks did Hunter have last year?
14 and a half.
Holy shit! Yeah, like that's
we take that for granted. We think that he's good, and we think, oh well, he had a couple sacks this week, so that's great. But when you start adding them up and you look at the number totals, it kind of sneaks up on you.
Well, and I've talked about this in the past too. We've been spoiled in Minnesota when it comes to just having phenomenal athletes at the defensive end position. You go from Jared Allen to Everson Griffin to Danielle Hunter, and then you've got other guys who are maybe like a little step below them, like talent-wise, but are still really good, like Brian Robinson out there playing for the team. Like we've been absolutely spoiled.
Even Ray Edwards was good.
Ray Edwards was good in there too. Yeah. So you look at some of these guys and you're like, oh, they got 14 and a half sacks last season. You forget that that's like really freaking good numbers.
And he was doing that without Everson Griffin on the other side for a while too. So It's not like he was getting double teamed constantly or that he was getting a ton of attention. It's just he was able to take his moves and figure out what works. And speaking of moves, I shared something in our Purple People podcast chat that I thought was absolutely hilarious about Gregg Williams.
Oh, please bring it up, because that was really funny.
Apparently with the Browns, Gregg Williams talked to Myles Garrett, and Myles Garrett was like, oh, I've got all these pass rush moves I can do. There's so many, the chop, the dip, the spin, there's so many of these different ways. And apparently Gregg Williams told him, these are the 2 effective pass rushing moves that we have, and these are the only 2 I want to see you doing. And it baffles me so bad to hear that quote, because Danielle Hunter is going to get you with speed and power. If you take a look at Danielle Hunter, you'll see those big arms, and he's just so athletic. But he's got that nice agility too, where you can expect him to just bull rush you, and then he just takes a little bit of a spin, and you're caught off guard.
Yeah.
And when you're attacking someone, and you only have a limited move set. It's just tough. It's like Double Dragon. You got the punch button, you got the kick button. Do something else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wonder, what do you think the 2 moves are that Gregg Williams approves of? Is one of them like taking out the knees of your quarterback?
Oh.
Yeah, I went there. Fuck that guy.
I don't think Danielle Hunter would take part in something like that. I think he's a little bit more of a classy guy than that.
Yeah, no, I'm talking
That's what
about
I like to think.
The Saints and the Browns or whatever.
Oh, I know. I'm just applying his rules to what they might be in Minnesota, if he somehow ends up there, and I really hope he doesn't.
No.
I don't think Minnesota could ever really embrace him with open arms, or he's my most hated person in the NFL, really.
I don't. Mike Zimmer would never put up with his shit. He would not put up with that. He would take him out in the parking lot.
I'd like to think that's true.
Who was the coach that Zimmer looked like he wanted to fight when they went to go shake hands? Who was that?
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh, damn it. Where's Kyle Smith when we meet him? He's so good with this shit.
Yeah, Smith would remember this.
Yeah. Fuck, who was that? Was that Sean Payton? No?
I'm not sure.
Maybe someone in the chat can remind us on that one.
But yeah, the NFL players under 25, the Vikings have so many good players, and a couple of them have just edged up over 25 years old, so they weren't really able to be accepted in this. But it's not like the Vikings are old by any means. They have a lot of younger players that are on their first contract extension, or even rookies that are still trying to prove themselves, or even players that are trying to step up after a year or two. Pat Elflein was on this list a couple of years ago, which was nice. Mm-hmm. And I believe Stephon Diggs was on there a couple of years ago.
I think so too. Yeah, Minnesota.
Yeah, it's nice to see that kind of young talent and the drafting going well to be able to bring in these guys that can contribute and get some recognition.
Right. I think Minnesota's got a really good nucleus, a core nucleus of players that they are continuing to build around and add rookies to, and lots of pieces that are in their prime. Like, I don't feel like every team has a window, that you're trying to build towards and win, but I don't feel like Minnesota is like, we have to put all of the pieces in right now because Brett Favre's in his last year and Jared Allen's coming into his last year. Like, we don't have a lot of players that are seemingly ready to age out for the Vikings. We have a lot of guys like Diggs and Thielen and Smith that are in the prime of their career right now. So we've still got a little bit that we can work with the guys we currently have under contract.
Absolutely.
What's our next one? Are we talking about sack lunches? I think we are. The Vikings hosted the second annual Team Up to Give Back volunteer event at the Southside Village Boys and Girls Club in Minneapolis. That is where some players, some coaches, some staff, they served lunch and packed over 35,000 meals for children in the area. Adam, I think you wrote this article.
I did not.
Vikings.com.
It was Brittany.
You did not. Oh, awesome. Well, do you know more about this than I do?
I don't.
Neither do I, but it sounds like they did good work.
I saw some photos of people from the team packing up the lunches. I didn't take a whole lot of a solid look at the article, but this is something that the Vikings did last year. I wrote about it last year. And a lot of players just take a lot of pride in helping out the community, especially when it comes to kids and organizations around the area that help kids. So it's no real surprise to see them doing this again. It's like the Vikings playground build, which I don't know if they've done yet this year. That's something I always look forward to seeing photos and stuff from.
I think that's closer to training camp, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a little closer to training camp.
Yeah.
But the Vikings do so many great things for the community, and it's one of the reasons why I really love this organization.
Remember that scene in Billy Madison where they eat all the kids' sack lunches?
Oh, yeah.
That's the first thing I thought. I was right in this quick hit.
I don't know if the Vikings could eat 35,000 meals. That's a lot of meals.
Don't discount Linval Joseph. Linval hungry. We say Linval that all the time. I think Linval could chow down a few of those himself.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's move on. Let's move on from that thought. Here's a good one. The Vikings have hired former NFL kicker Nate. Is it Keating? I'm going to say Keating. Keating as a kicking coach. He spent 10 years in the NFL, 9 of them with the Chargers, and part of the 10th season with the Miami Dolphins. It looks like he was 86.2% on his field goals and 99.4% on extra points. But you got to keep in mind that was back when extra points were a little further forward, so they were a little easier. So take that 99.4%, what you will, with the stat.
I have so many questions about this hiring. I don't understand.
I do too. So essentially, what? They're bringing him in to help with Dan Bailey, who's a seasoned veteran.
Yeah. And the special teams coach, I don't know what they think that he can't help with the kicking or what the deal is here. But it's just so confusing. I wrote an article recently on the Viking Age, I believe it was even yesterday or 2 days ago, about how Minnesota needed to bring in or at least train someone to be a holder on the team's roster in case something happens or Matt Weil just can't take care of what he's doing. And I'm wondering if this hire is essentially, let's teach Matt Weil how to hold properly.
I mean, I honestly had to do a double take when I read this to be like, did we sign a rookie kicker that I don't know about? Because this is the thing that we should have done last year to save Daniel Carlson. I don't know why we're doing it now.
I absolutely hate that last year I was watching NFL games and I was pointing out crooked angles on holes. I shouldn't have to do that. And I shouldn't do that at all. I should be a regular Vikings fan. Be like, oh, look, nice snap. Oh, good hold. Okay. Those parts should be almost automatic. When they brought in Matt Weil, and Matt Weil had no holding experience really in his past, and they wanted him to do the job, there were times when he just could not get the ball straight. He couldn't get the ball lined up properly. He couldn't get the laces where they needed to be. That was a major issue for the kicking game. And one of the reasons why I would not be shocked one bit to see Daniel Carlson be successful where he's at now.
I mean, yeah, he had good success with Oakland as soon as he got into a better situation for him out in Minnesota, which sucks. That's kind of depressing to talk about.
I mean, Wiles had another offseason. He's been able to work on his holding, I hope. He's also got to work on his punting and maybe a touch on his coverage of punts because punters do got to try to run down players sometimes. But,
a little bit.
Yeah, this hire, what was wrong with the special teams coach they just hired? What's wrong with the team's assistants? Why do they got to bring in this kicker who just recently retired to come in and work with Dan Bailey, who's a multiple-year NFL veteran, who's had a ton of success?
He's a seasoned veteran. I don't know what you're going to teach him that he doesn't already know. He's either got it or he doesn't have it at this point. Like, you either believe in him and you're like, Dan Bailey is our guy. If you seriously think you've got to bring someone in to fix him at this point, fucking cut ship with this guy right now because it's just not going to end well. I don't even want to think about that.
And especially at this point in the season. What could the team have seen at this point in the season to hire a kicking coach they didn't hire back when they were looking at coaches? What spurned this decision?
I don't know, Adam. These are all questions I don't know.
If anyone in the chat has any idea as far as what is going on with that kicker situation, with bringing in a coach, what they're trying to fix, I'd be happy to entertain hearing that because I have no idea.
Refresh my memory. Do we have any other kickers on the team?
Nope.
Some undrafted. We're bringing him in for a tryout.
There's no competition for kicker, punter, or really long snapper.
I don't like that.
I don't like that either. Not one bit.
No, I'm not a fan. They're really got all their eggs in one basket.
They do. And as far as backups go, or people they got to call in cases of emergency, it's not looking good.
Kai Forbath, what's Kai doing?
Not sure, to be honest.
Well, you can call him off the couch, bring him in if we need him.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he'd come in.
Probably not. I still feel sorry for him. You know who we're not going to be calling anytime soon? The New York Jets.
No?
They have a terrible history with trying to sign either Vikings players or coaches, as George Paton has once again turned down an interview to be the Jets GM. And I cannot blame him. I would not want to have anything to do with that dumpster fire known as the New York Jets.
Is it wrong that I find that hilarious? I mean, I know that I should be a little bit more like, oh, the Jets need to get their organization together. They need to be more competitive. You know, the NFL would be a better place if these teams were better and games were more entertaining and everything.
Very political answer.
But the side of me that just laughs because of all of this. And you've got a Vikings wide receiver sticking with Minnesota. You've got the Barr stuff. You've got the Cousins stuff. And now you've got Paton turning down the Jets for an interview for the third time in a row.
What's especially funny about it is that he didn't even want to interview with him.
No,
it's not like, oh yeah, I'll go interview and I'll see what's up. And yeah, I decided to turn him down. It's like, no, I just don't even fucking want to interview with him.
It's funny because Anthony Barr actually went over, visited with them, and then that's when he decided, no, I don't want to be here.
Could you imagine? You're a professional athlete. This is what you do. You're going to get a big contract. You go to an organization, and then you have so much anxiety about it that you're like, no, I don't want to be a part of them.
Oh, my God. And then it was funny, too, because the Jets signed another linebacker after Barr left. And they released all these statements. Oh, this is the guy we were after. We went out and got him. It's like, no, it wasn't. No, it really wasn't who you were after.
No. As for George Paton, we need to give this guy a fucking gold star or purple star or something for sticking around this team.
They keep giving him title promotions, which is great. And you can be the assistant GM, you can be the head of scouting, you can be all these different head of player personnel. You can be all these jobs that you want. And the fact that him and Rick Spielman work so closely and have such a great working relationship and have really brought in a lot of great young talent to the organization, it's no surprise that he's comfortable in where he's at. He's probably making enough money to where even if he was to go to the Jets to be a general manager, he probably wouldn't make very much more than he's making in Minnesota to have fun, be with his friends, relax, and enjoy things. I don't see... I'm one of those people where I would rather have a job where I'm getting paid less and enjoying my time than have a job where I'm making a ton of money.
Yeah, that was my old job in a nutshell, too, which unfortunately closed up at the end of last year. But it was like I didn't get paid because I could independent small business. It's like I couldn't get paid anywhere near, the work we were doing. But it was so much fun, and I loved my old boss so much. It's like I understand that. Sometimes it's like, you're willing to take less to stay in an area where you're happy, which is always, and like, I get it without opening up this whole can of worms, but it's always a little frustrating when players are like, oh, I love Minnesota, but I'm not willing to take a little bit less money so that they can retain more players to keep the team together. Like, it's supposed to be your teammates and stuff. Like, I don't know. I hate talking about other players' money, but I always feel like if I was in that situation, I would probably be the nice guy that's like, yeah, I'll take a little bit of a pay cut if that means keeping whoever.
And then your agent will slap you across the face. And he'll say, Sam Bradford, you take all the money you can get.
And where is Sam Bradford now, Adam?
Rolling around on a bed of money? That's my guess. He would. I was going to say that he was going to dive into like a Scrooge McDuck vault, but his knees are so bad, I don't think he could dive without injuring himself. Oh. Let's talk for a second, though, about George Paton's decision here, because it's not like the Jets don't have some decent pieces. When you take a look at their roster, you see some talented players on both offense and defense. Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah, they've got Le'Veon Bell, right?
Yes, they do. They signed him this offseason.
That guy's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like there isn't pieces there that could make the Jets a successful team, but I don't understand what the Jets are really doing from a leadership standpoint when you fire a guy immediately after the draft. That's really confusing. And when you got a head coach and a GM that aren't on the same page, and instead of supporting your general manager, you fire him and support the coach. It's like, what's going on?
Adam Gase is one of those coaches that I don't have no real faith in him as a head coach anymore. Do you? Because I don't think he's ever going to amount to shit. I just don't.
No, they're those head coach hirings that just kind of make you scratch your head and just confuse you. Like the Lions one right now. I don't understand why you would go out and get the defensive coordinator from the Patriots to be your head coach and expect him to step in that role and be successful. I just don't understand that. Matt Patricia gave no real indication that he could do it, and I don't really think that there's any real reason that Gase should be successful.
I look at his time in Miami, and I go, what part of that makes me go, I want that on my team?
Right.
Yeah, buddy, give me that.
Sometimes promotions just aren't a good idea. I mean, I've been a boss, or at least a middle level boss, and had employees that have been really great employees at the role they're in. But you know that if you gave them a little bit more responsibility and a little bit more tasks, they wouldn't be able to handle it. It's not an insult on them, it's that they're really good at what they do.
And, to bring this back to the Vikings a little bit, I think Pat Shurmur is a really good example of, I think he's a good offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Not the best of head coaches.
Agreed. There are those roles that are made for people, and I don't think that the Jets have any idea what it takes to be a general manager. I don't think that they really know what they want from their team as far as a direction from their head coach, even to put the pieces that the team has together into some sort of squad that's going to win football games. The more I look at this situation, I've been scared every time that Paton has gotten a chance to interview for a GM position anywhere. Because losing him would be a blow to the Vikings. It really would. But it seems like he has no interest in going anywhere, at least not to the Jets. I mean, you'd have to be a little bit more nervous if a team with a little bit more potential or a more attractive situation approached him. But for now, it's nice to see him still standing firm in his decisions not to pursue a job with the Jets.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you added this last quick hit in here. Boy, I hope this does not come true. NFLPA is telling players to save money for a potential lockout in 2021. The words lockout and NFL are not two things I ever want to put in the same sentence. Hope it doesn't come to this.
And the collective bargaining agreement is going to be a tough one because the NFL is pushing for 18-game seasons and other just weird stuff to try to earn more money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you can have a longer season and cut off some of the preseason, yeah, that could be good. Have 3 preseason games, 18 regular season games. You're just adding 1 game to the roster. You're not losing out too much because, let's face it, week 4 of the preseason is just basically training camp.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's going to be a lot going on with this collective bargaining, and the NFLPA is warning their players, hey, things might get a little bit rough here, so don't go a little too crazy because in 2021 we're going to need a new deal in place, and we don't know if one's going to be able to get made.
It'll be interesting too because there's also, the XFL is going to be starting up, and I don't like that's never going to be direct competition.
No.
With the NFL. But there is the possibility that if that is enough of a success to where it has a full season, unlike what was that other league? AAF?
The AAF, yeah.
AAF.
AAF's a trivia question now, and that's what's sad.
Yeah, I know, because I really enjoyed what they were doing.
There were some really good games.
There were some good players in that league, too.
Yeah.
Proof by the fact that a lot of them got signed immediately to NFL rosters.
Yeah, the Vikings grabbed a couple of them, too.
But there is the possibility that, with the XFL out there, depending on how they structure and some of the rules and things that they do, could also have an influence on how players want to structure the NFL their contracts coming up as well, too, with the NFLPA. Because you look at, one of the things we talked about a couple episodes ago, kind of a hot-button topic, if the XFL doesn't test for pot,
True.
We're seeing it get legalized in more and more states, that could honestly be an issue that the players are like, we're not willing to budge on this because, hey, there's this other league that doesn't.
True.
I mean, I
don't see the XFL paying anywhere near what the NFL can. But the one good thing about the XFL that we already know is that they know what it costs to run a football organization. They've done it before. They've had a season. They've also got really deep pockets. Super deep pockets.
A lot deeper than what the AAF had, which is why they had to fold immediately. Andrew in the chat says, I wonder how the XFL and the NFLPA are going to interact. I was wondering that too a little bit because, one of the rumors was that the AAF wanted to have it to where players on NFL practice squads could actually play in the AAF to kind of like get more experience on the field. So it'd be interesting to see if the NFLPA is able to work that kind of deal out with the XFL, or if they, and by they I mean the XFL, just have zero interest in working with the NFL. That would kind of be my guess.
Well, the AAF were kind of teasing themselves as being like a training ground for players that are looking to join the NFL.
Right.
They promoted that really heavily.
I wasn't a fan of that.
Because that statement alone made you think that these players were notches below the ones in the NFL.
Right. It's like, hey, you love the NFL? Here's a bunch of guys that are not quite good enough to make it.
But I see the XFL is going to I'm just assuming here, I'm spitballing, but I'm going to assume the XFL is going to remain entirely separate. Although I do think that we are going to see a lot of crossover as far as maybe some players from the NFL, maybe even some notable players make the jump over to the XFL, or maybe some XFL players just shine really well, and the NFL will throw out a tryout or a contract offer or something. I think we are going to see some crossover, but I don't think we're going to see the level of coordination that we saw between the NFL and the AAF, especially during broadcasts. I don't think we're going to see a mention, if there even is one, during the broadcast for either program. So I like that it's going to be separate. I like that the XFL has deep pockets. I don't think they're going to be a threat to the NFL, or even if there's a lockout in 2021 and the NFL has to take a little bit of time away, which I don't think will happen. Because like I said, there's way too much money on the table. But if that does happen, I expect everything to stay separate and everything to be smoothed out. I'm not expecting a lockout in 2021, but we've seen stupider things happen.
We had that little, what year was that we had that kind of like little mini lockout before the draft and stuff?
Yeah.
The year we drafted Ponder, what year was that?
2011.
2011, thank you. Something like that. Potentially, but I don't think there's too much.
We've seen refs lock out, and that didn't go well.
Yeah, that did not go well. This isn't the 1980s anymore. There is too much money on the table for players and for the NFL in general, for there to be a lockout to where we're just not having a season. I don't think that's good. I don't think it's going to actually get to that.
I can't see it happening.
But could you imagine if it did, and then there were just players? but could you just imagine if it did, and there were players who were like, "Fuck it, I'm going to go play for the other league."
That would be pretty crazy.
Could you do that? I mean, I don't know. It'd be kind of cool.
I don't think they could, because I think their NFL contracts would still hold up, even though the league doesn't have a collective bargaining agreement made. So I'm not sure how the legality of that would work. But you never know.
There's got to be. There
might be loopholes.
So there's always loopholes, Adam. We're going to get to our main topic, which is basically just an extended quick hit because it's the off season. Sometimes there's not always big, like we got to pound our fists on the table for this this main topic this week, but it is a good one. I think you'll like it. I know you do because you already talked about it in the chat.
True.
We have to keep the illusion alive for the people, Adam. Mike Zimmer said on KFan that defensive tackle Hercules, I'm going to butcher the last name. Is it
Mataafa?
Mataafa. Hercules Mataafa has been the surprise of camp so far. He's bulked up to 275 pounds, and at times he reminds Zimmer of the 7-time Pro Bowler from Cincinnati, Geno Atkins.
Doesn't surprise me one bit. I loved this kid when he came out of the draft system, came out of college. He was an undrafted free agent, I believe, that landed with Minnesota, and he just, when you watch tape on him, you see a high effort player that just shines. He flashes so often that it's hard not to notice him. The problem that NFL teams had, and even the Vikings had at first, is finding a role on a team where he would succeed, because his size and athleticism didn't quite match up with what would be prototypical or ideal for any position on a football field. So what the Vikings were going to do last year was they were going to work on bulking him up, have him work on his power. But, of course, he had a devastating injury that sidelined him for the season, and he had to sit out.
I believe it was an ACL injury, right?
It was, yep.
Yep.
This offseason, he was able to return, and it's not any shock at all that he is impressing coaches, impressing the staff, and just flying off the page when it comes to seeing what he can do. If he has gained a significant amount of power to go with his speed and athleticism, his motor and determination, he could be a really important piece of this Vikings defense. And the fact that Shamar Stephen came over back to the Vikings to play that defensive tackle spot, I'm not 100% sure how secure his starting position would be if Mata'afa can continue to just look dominant.
Didn't they initially have him at linebacker?
Yeah, he was a linebacker in college, undersized linebacker, but it really was never a really good fit for him. He was more of a player who was better when it came to focusing on pass rushing from the defensive line and trying to hold the line a bit. So the problem is that offensive linemen in the NFL are so big and strong and agile that a player his size wouldn't succeed on the defensive line, yet his skill set didn't translate well to being a linebacker.
Alan Adkins, who just joined us in the chat, has an excellent little comment here. He says he's an undrafted, undersized defensive tackle. Vikings have good luck with those.
It's true.
Yeah. Of course, talking about John Randall with that one. I remember us talking a little bit about Hercules last offseason. I
was praising that kid.
Yeah, we were all excited to see him have an opportunity to make the team, and then, of course, the injury bug happens. It's always unfortunate for any player to get injured, especially ones that you can see the potential in. And
right.
I remember you and Kyle Smith, you sold me on him a little bit because you guys were talking about him a little bit more than what I was. But, for Mike Zimmer to throw out a comparison to Geno Atkins, Zimmer is not a nostalgic kind of guy.
He's like, also not a guy to throw out a lot of compliments.
That too. That's where I was going with this, where he's not like a nostalgic kind of guy who's like, oh, he reminds me of my time in Cincinnati. Like, that's not what he is. So for him to give that kind of praise, keeping in mind they're only in gym shorts and shit right now, like they're not doing a whole hell of a lot, but still, it's like that definitely means something. This is the time of year where you should be impressing the coaches. You should be trying to stand out and look your best.
And coming off an ACL injury, being out there, being impressive, that's pretty darn good.
Andrew in the chat said that he had to eat a lot of steak to bulk up to 275 pounds.
These days, I don't think it's steak. I think they've got all those fancy powders and proteins and shakes, and I'm sure that there's some good meal loading going on. I can't remember who it was, but recently some Vikings player was trying to pack on. Oh, I remember who it was. Brian O'Neill talking about what he was doing to try to gain weight. And he was like, a lot of buffets, man, a lot of buffets.
I like that. I like the old school approach for gaining weight.
So, yeah, I was laughing pretty hard about that. I mean, there's so many different ways to do that in the NFL these days. And for Brian O'Neill, he needs to pack on some pounds to be able to be more of an anchor. For Hercules Mata'afa, he needs to gain a little bit more of those pounds, to put a little bit more force behind his rush. So it's different reasons for packing on a little bit of pounds, but for both players, it's really a successful formula, I think.
I'm sure There was a little bit of protein powder with Jared Allen, but I bet Jared Allen was a hell of a lot of steak.
Oh, yeah. Definitely seems like a steak guy.
There's no way Jared Allen just didn't wake up at 2 in the morning.
A steak and a Budweiser just outside grilling.
Oh, yeah.
I can picture it right now.
That's probably what he's doing right now, if I had to guess. We don't have a social media question this week.
Nope.
Because we don't
have a Mike Zimmer quote of the week. We don't have a
Kyle one in our main
bold
topic.
Statement.
Kyle Smith bold statement. We could make one up for him.
No, mine would just involve Katie Nolan, and we don't need that.
Yeah, you're right. I think we can actually wrap this episode up, Adam.
A 45-minute episode. What?
We said we were going to have a short episode, and we actually had a short episode.
Oh, Andrew Lahala in the chat talking about deer. And I know that this is a Midwest thing, like up in the tri-state area here or whatever, but everywhere else in the United States says deer meat. It's venison. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Everywhere else says deer meat. And you don't call pork pig meat. Come on, guys.
You would be the one. Adam, you would be the one to call that out. Your attention to details like that is just always right on point.
It's not a talent. It's definitely a curse. I couldn't spell
venison. Hey, that's a fucking fair point if I've ever heard that.
I can get that. All right, that's all I've got. Do you have anything you want to plug or say?
I can plug my photography website if I am allowed to do such a thing. And I am, because it is our podcast after all. You can check my workout over on phantasmdigital.com. I will put a link in the video description, and I will toss one up in the chat. I just put up about 60 photos that I took. I did a set recently in some old creepy abandoned apartments. They turned out really pretty cool. I like this one quite a lot. I think it turned out really fun. It was a different kind of thing from what I usually do, so that's pretty neat. Of course, I've got all kinds of other photos up there. I've even got some Vikings photos if you were so inclined. I've got a cool couple ones that I took at US Bank Stadium as well too. So
you still have some of your digital art on there too?
Yeah, a little bit. Most of that is not too good, but you can still check it out if you'd like.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And I think you've got some stuff over on the Viking Age and Undead Walking.
I do. I've actually got a couple strange announcements to make. Maybe one strange one and a couple of good ones. Over on the Viking Age, we are having another very successful month where at a time when the NFL and Minnesota Vikings news has kind of been slow, it's nice to be able to see Vikings fans still coming to the Viking Age and giving a ton of support because we had another phenomenal month over there. I set my own personal record for views this month, so I know that Vikings fans are hungry out there for any kind of information they can get, and I really appreciate them coming to the Viking Age and checking it out, liking, sharing, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, thank you very much for all that. I really appreciate it, and we're going to keep all that momentum rolling into next month where we're going to be seeing a lot of top 10 lists and stuff like that people tend to have a lot of fun talking about. So hopefully you can join us for that. Over on Undead Walking, we've got some new contributors joining, and I know that about a month ago, this time was when I made my announcement that I was stepping down to become a contributor and step away from becoming a site expert. But guess what? I'm becoming an expert again. I'm taking my job back.
Oh, there you go. Take that pay raise, Adam.
So I'm gonna take that job back. I'm gonna focus a lot more on the comics and the Walking Dead TV show, while the rest of my staff and my other expert, Sarah Beth, focus a lot more on Fear the Walking Dead. So that is what I got going on.
I was at Walmart today, and I seen something that I thought of you. The 3-season DVD box set of Z Nation.
Why would you think of me for that? No.
Because I know you're a big fan of the Z Nation.
No. Black Summer, though, that was pretty good. If you watch Netflix, that is the prequel series to Z Nation, and that's actually all right.
Yeah.
I'll give a thumbs up to
I'll
that.
have to check it out. I will have to check it out.
But I will also throw out one more thing that is not related to us at all. If you do have Netflix and love sports, especially baseball, I'm not a massive baseball fan, but Lonely Island just released a really funny video over there, nice sports video that kind of tackles a lot of Oakland A's humor in their style. So check that out, and let's talk about that at MN Viking Zombie over on Twitter, because I really enjoyed that.
You betcha. Well, I think that is going to wrap it up. Next week is our, how many episodes?
350.
350th episode. We should do something special for that.
About 350.
About 350. That should be the episode name. About 350. Which is awesome. We'll talk about it more next week, but we really, I think I can speak for everyone when I really want to say thanks to everyone who comes in with the chat and interacts with us or talks to us on Facebook or social media or any of these platforms. Adam and I talk about this all the time. We have no idea how we made it to 350 episodes.
I honestly don't know.
I don't know. This is the longest relationship I've ever been in.
Right?
Yeah.
The more I sit and think about back when this started and we were just recording ourselves over Skype and how far we've come to having YouTube live now, and we got live chats going on during games and stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, the Discord chat is so much fun.
I remember when I approached you guys and be like, and said, "Hey, let's try going live on YouTube and see what happens." And here we are. I couldn't imagine it any other way now.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't do this shit if it was just over Skype. That's no fun.
No, not at all. But on that note, I think we're going to call it a close and call it a quick show at 52 minutes. So
we did it.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in the chat here. Andrew Lehala, Aline Atkins, and everyone else who joined us in here, along with, let's see who else we got here. Real Purple and Gold, Minnesota Vikings, Dorian Foley, Ying Yaj, as well as anyone that I may have missed during my quick scroll there. We appreciate you here. And we also want to point out that we have our top fans over on our Facebook page. If you're not one of our top fans, the best way to get that is to comment on our posts. Even if it's just something simple as saying Skol or something nice and long talking about something we're posting up, it's always appreciated and always works out well. And maybe you can get yourself a top fan badge. As far as the podcast goes, I know that you hear it on every YouTube video, but liking, sharing, and subscribing can help us grow, can help us have our chat a little bit more hopping. So if you could do that, that would be absolutely amazing. You can interact with us on socials, and you can just interact with us because we're pretty cool people sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. In the meantime, stay classy, Minnesota.